Hello, people. Welcome back to the MUFC MPB YouTube channel with your host today, Anil Kandola. It's been a while. I've been away. I've had a very busy schedule, but I'm so glad to say we're back and we're back with a bang. We've got an absolute brilliant guest on today. He's strategic and operational head of GRV Media, as well as loads of transfer related stuff on HITC football. He's the brilliant Bailey. Graeme, thank you so much for joining me. Before we get into things, I always like to ask my guests, what's it like to report on Manchester United and how do you find it each day?
How you doing, Anil? Um, yeah, it's one way you can become a bit complacent with it. We um reporting on all football, not just United. Obviously, I do all clubs, but writing about football for a living, talking about it, making phone calls about it. People when you explain to other people what I do, it astounds them, amazes them. I get a bit yeah, it's not a bit blasé, but you get used to it. It's your life. It's what we do. But yeah, it's humbling. It's nice to talk to people like yourself, Anil, and come on shows like this to get across the message and talk about things. I like putting a bit of, I like shows like this, and you put meat on the bones, you'll see from a lot of my stuff, and it's generally transfers. And so there's not much room for opinion, really, sometimes. People, it sounds silly. I have this social media following, etc. But people aren't really looking for my opinion all the time. They're more, as you said, they're more picking my brains and want to know what I've heard. So they want to know what I've heard off other people, not necessarily what I've heard, what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly that. It's almost one of these industries that can be very cruel, can't they? It's almost one of them ones where, I've had the experience myself of getting a bit of information correct. It's come true. It's obviously happened the way I've been told, and then no response, nothing. And then when you don't get one that's quite working out the way you thought, I'm sure you'll be reminded of it. So let's hope the latter doesn't happen today, and we're absolutely bang on the money with everything that we talk about. Well, look,
I'm sure we will be. I'm sure we will be.
exactly. Well, look, I think when it comes to Manchester United, I think today of all days, there's only one place to start, which is obviously the manager situation. Now, look, Erik Ten Hag is, of course, in deep waters, shall we say. I think there was a big turning point, despite them getting through to the FA Cup final, the fact that they were 3-0 up with around 20 minutes to go against Coventry City, a championship outfit, and then almost, I hate to use the phrase because obviously a lot of people and fans don't like it, but bottle it. And they were very fortunate in the end not to obviously lose in a very catastrophic way. But look, Erik Ten Hag is in a lot of pressure. He's in a lot of danger. And one name that is going around the rumour mill and then some is a certain Thomas Tuchel. Now, of course, Thomas Tuchel isn't exactly, safe at Bayern Munich himself after he sort of surrendered the league. German media were really on his back saying that he almost should go now. But they're in the final four of the Champions League. They could still have a very memorable season. And I received a text message last night from a very reliable Manchester United source to say that Thomas Tuchel is firmly on the Manchester United shortlist, and there have been some talk surrounding him potentially going to Manchester United. So, in terms of Thomas Tuchel to Old Trafford, what have you heard? Of course, there's been so many strong links, and is he, would you even say, the favourite to replace Erik Ten Hag?
Obviously, Bayern made the move to announce that he was leaving at the end of the season. Wasn't just to pacify the fans at Bayern, but they'd had a bad run. They've been outplayed for large parts of the season to Bayer Leverkusen, which is no disgrace to a very good team, but they just haven't delivered. From what I'm hearing, I know, yeah, Thomas Tuchel's people are making it known to teams in England specifically. I think it's where I'd like to come back to that he's available. Um, Talking to various clubs, Manchester United being one of them, West Ham another, because he's very close to Tim Steidten, and he was very close to Tim Steidten was very close to joining him at Chelsea before he left there. So there is a link there as well, and obviously West Ham aren't as big as United, but the different things where they can offer him living in London, big stadiums, big future planned out for them there. In terms of United, I don't see him personally being a fit there, Anil. I think, with Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth coming in, because he will be coming in. It's just a matter of when he comes in rather than if. From what I'm hearing, I think they would like the disciplinary side of things. I think Ineos would appreciate, but I think that we need to look at what Ashworth and Wilcox have worked with in the past and what they want. I think that'll probably tell us to who, if they do replace Everton Hag, I think that's probably tell us the way they're looking at it. But Tuchel, he is probably one of the bigger names on the market, and that's been the issue I've got back from United fans when we're talking about some of the others who we know United like a Southgate, like a Potter, it's not inspiring the fans and talk of those sort of names, is it? So it's not surprising when someone like Tuchel's name comes around that it probably pricks the attention of the fans a bit more. It pricks their interest more because he's a seasoned campaigner. He's a big name. He's probably the biggest name being linked to the job as we stand. I know, isn't he? So I think there is. I think United are doing the work on him. I think he would like to go there. For me, I don't see him fitting in with the Ineos and the new footballing department at Old Trafford. But we'll see where they go. I don't, and they have to make a firm decision on Ten Hag, which I'm told they haven't yet made that decision.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there in terms of Tuchel being, of course, the big name that's been linked to the Manchester United job. But as you say, he doesn't seem to fit the exact type of mold that the likes of Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox will potentially be looking for. So it will be a very interesting one. But as you said as well, which I totally agree with, when you do have names like Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter, which are, sort of the mold, if you like, to join Manchester United in their new sort of dawn of a new era, if that's the way to put it, it would be someone like them too. But Tuchel, as you say, he's got the European pedigree. Of course, he won the European Cup with Chelsea when they weren't exactly favourites against Manchester City a couple of seasons ago. And I think, as you say, the fact that Manchester United fans have been sort of related to them types of names, and then you go to someone like Tuchel, it does seem a lot more attractive, doesn't it? But as you say, first and foremost, Ineos need to make a concrete decision on Erik ten Hag's future. And one big Manchester United name that almost needs to be sort of decided what's going to happen with him and his future is a certain Marcus Rashford. Now, of course, there have been reports coming out in the last couple of days and probably even so long, a week ago, if you like, basically saying that Manchester United aren't exactly desperate to sell Marcus Rashford. They don't, exactly put him right at the top of the transfer list, but they would be more inclined to at least hear some concrete offers. And if a decent enough offer did come in, as I say, at the very minimum, they would consider it. So in terms of Marcus Rashford, what have you heard? What have you heard of a potential price United would be looking at? And who does hold interest in the winger?
Yeah, so I've actually done a piece today, Anil. You can read via my Twitter. We've done a piece on Marcus Rashford today. My understanding that Marcus Rashford has told United that he's not wanting to leave, that he wants to knuckle down. I think he knows this season hasn't been good enough from him. Compared to this season to last, it's just not where he wants to be. What 30 goals last season and what eight so far this season. He knows that's not good enough. He and from what I'm told is United would love nothing more than Rashford to be that figurehead, not just for the club but for these young players. We know going forward this United team, the way Iniesta are approaching it, they want the likes of Manu, Garnacho, Kumbawala to be central to their plans. So what better example in theory to those players is Marcus Rashford. He should be there. He should be that. He should be that big poster as you walk into United Academy saying, "Look, this is what you aspire to be. He's our best player now. He's our highest paid player." And he came from the streets of Manchester, the streets of Salford. Look at this boy. He's what you're aiming for. And I think that's one big reason to want to keep him. Another reason is you could argue. I know there's some cynical United fans out there. They realise there's not many buyers out there for someone on over £300,000 a week. Someone who, yeah, some United fans may not think he's worth that much, but he's at a market value of at least 75 million, at least, if not more. He's an England national. There isn't a marketplace for him there, Anil. He's not going to go to Saudi Arabia. PSG, in theory, did like him. They pursued him in the past, but they've got other options they're looking at. I think Victor Osimhen, they're hoping will be their star signing of the summer. So I don't see where there's an option for him, but he would argue, look, he's not looking anyway. Whether we believe that or not, his people are saying he's not looking to move. He's settled there. So every player has a price. We know that, and especially this United squad. There's only those three names I mentioned. Might be the only ones with a not for sale sign around the necks. I'd throw Martinez, Sean Fernandez in there as well. As not for sale, but those three youngsters is what the club is about, and I think they need Rashford in there to be that figurehead for the academy. And I think they're hoping that'll be the case. And I think they'll definitely give him another season at the very least to show he can get back to where he was and show this season was more of a blip than anything.
Yeah. I completely echo everything you said there. It's my understanding also that Marcus Rashford in an ideal world would want to spend the rest of his career at Manchester United and be a one club man. Manchester United would reciprocate that. But as we know, football doesn't always work in the way that we want to. We only have to look at Manchester United with a certain Roy Keane. Certain things don't work in the way quite that you want them to. And for whatever reason, the player and the club part ways and it can be a surprise to everyone. And I do think one big surprise of how it's turned out is Jadon Sancho. Now, when Jadon Sancho came into Manchester United, Man United were pursuing him. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was pursuing him for 2 summers, and he eventually got his man. And Man United fans especially were very excited to see him. He was tearing up the Bundesliga. He was so exciting. The numbers he was putting up out there just showed, this kid has got huge ceiling when it comes to potential and what he can really achieve. But as we know, it hasn't quite worked out. I think Ten Hag has been a big factor. His side will say that he's tried his very best to help Sancho, and Sancho probably wouldn't say the same about Erik Ten Hag. But as we know, as we've spoke about already at the top of the show, that Erik Ten Hag's future is unlikely, and that's probably putting it quite lightly going forward at Manchester United. And there was always that door of opportunity open at Manchester United for Jadon Sancho, wasn't there? That if Ten Hag was to be moved on, then he could perhaps even start his career afresh again at Old Trafford. So, do you think that despite obviously Ten Hag very likely, I think anyway, to be exiting Manchester United, do you think that will have an impact on Jadon Sancho, or would you say that he is still very likely to leave the club, irrespective of who the manager will be next season?
It's a tough one, Anil. I think we're probably looking at 50-50 with him if Ten Hag leaves. He's very happy at Dortmund where he is. I'm told that United are open to him leaving, but they know what his market value is. And so what's the best way to get the market value out of Jadon Sancho? It probably is at the very least another season on loan at Dortmund. He settled in wonderfully well. He's only been there a few months really, so he's done very well to be such a pivotal figure for Dortmund. I think there was the risk of loaning him out, and if he'd spent like a Martial did at Sevilla last season, some of these loan deals can kill a player and his value, especially, which this is a business. The clubs are more concerned with the value. At the moment, he's really not. He's not back to where he was when United signed him, but he's getting there. So personally, I think another year's loan at Dortmund. I think with an option in there, Sancho's very happy. And let him have a season there if he becomes the best player in the Bundesliga again, which he's more than capable of, as we know. And he's got the skill, he's got the ability. I think everyone will be happy. Jadon Sancho for Manchester United is a good thing, because then even if he doesn't stay, you're going to get the massive proportion of his market value back again. Whereas at the moment, you're still going to take a heavy loss if he does go. So I don't think United need to take a loss on Sancho. So I think there is that chance he comes back. But from my understanding, he's very happy in Germany. And is there a huge push from United at the moment to bring him back? I don't believe so.
Subscribe to the mufcMPB YouTube channel. As you mentioned a little earlier ago, Graeme, that of course, loan deals can potentially sort of stop or prohibit a player from really reaching their potential and getting their career back on track. And one of the names you mentioned there was, of course, Anthony Martial. And just as you said, it sometimes doesn't quite work out the way you want to. And Martial firmly fits into that category. But in terms of obviously, I believe he will be leaving as a free agent in the summer. United will obviously need a striker. Which leads me nicely on to really the pursuit of a striker. Have you heard any names? And what I really wanted to know sort of was, what kind of avenue will Manchester United go down? Because, of course, Højlund was initially signed to be sort of like, the backup striker, if you like, someone to learn off.
Yep.
If you were to bring in someone like a Harry Kane. But of course, it didn't quite materialise in that way. It ended up Højlund being the main man at such a young age for Manchester United, which is far too much pressure, if you ask me. So will Man United sign someone to almost, allow Højlund to play that role, or will it be a backup striker to Højlund? How will it work, and what are the names that you've heard from your side?
Yeah, my understanding is they want that senior player, someone who Højlund can learn off. Is the way to do it. I don't think they'll bring in someone to compete head to head with him. I don't think that will help him. He needs someone to learn off. My sense, Jim Ratcliffe would dearly love to bring Harry Kane to the football club. Not going to happen. Very unlikely. I think United will probably ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you never get. But we all know that the likely outcome of that inquiry will be. We know they are. They've always had that open lines of communication with his people. So I think if Harry Kane was ever to be unhappy, that United would get a phone call. They haven't had that. So that's unlikely. In terms of the more likely players that could come in. And I'm told Victor Gyökeres is someone who United like a lot. Last 6 months, he really has stepped it up. AC Milan at one point thought they had a clear pathway to him, but now the Premier League clubs have really come circling. They really are taking notice of what he's doing. And United, the Premier League clubs are in Portugal quite a lot. We'll come on to other Portuguese targets for United as well. But Gyökeres really is becoming a standout figure. And he's a bit older than people think. He's what, 20 to 25, around that age. So he's got a few years in Højlund. So I do think he would tick the bill there, Anil, where he's really learned and mastered his craft. We know he's only had a year in Portugal, but those years he spent in the Championship honed his abilities. I'm a big Championship watcher. Unfortunately, Middlesbrough probably spend the rest of our lives in the Championship, so I've seen him a lot. But let's not forget, he was one who was he's a rarity. Gyökeres. He's one that got away from Brighton. All those years ago, he was spotted by Brighton, so he has been spotted by one of these best scouting clubs in the world, Brighton. They had him, they let him go, so he's one who's got away from them. He ticks an awful lot of boxes. He really does. Talk of this 100 million, I'm told the clause may not be quite that, and maybe avenues around that. So he's definitely on the radar. United have been watching him. There's been talk, so keep an eye on Victor Gyökeres. Ivan Toney is someone who United have looked at. They've done the homework on. I'm not told that everything they've looked at pleased them immensely, but he's someone who they like. They think he could come in and make an impact at what they want, take some pressure off Højlund. But with his age, and again, Tony's probably going to depend on the fee. I know, if Brentford allow him to go for 40 million, suddenly there's going to be a few more interested parties. Like the Spurs, did then Chelsea get back interested? We know Arsenal aren't coming back into him. I think they've done the work. They're not coming back in for him. But if they're asking over 60 million for Tony, then I don't think it's that's the way, because whoever's signing Tony, there's no sell on, and it's a risk. It really is. He's only done it at Brentford. Even Victor Gyökeres, who we're saying, he's gone to Sporting Lisbon and done it. So Tony is someone to like. He is. Can't deny that they have done the homework on him. Benjamin Sesko is an interesting player who we know United like, but as we were talking about there, Anil, I think if you bring Sesko in, that's more of a head-to-head rival, given his age profile. I think Sesko was one that we're looking at last summer as, do we take Højlund or Sesko? I don't think they'll go back for Sesko now because it's too similar. Too similar. I don't see them doing that. The other ones, there's a few foreign ones who they've got a long-term interest in. Don't forget likes of Vlahovic, and Lautaro Martinez is a player they've always liked. So I keep an eye on them too as well. Two players who might be available for 50 and 60, around that sort of mark, which I think does fit in with what United are trying to do. But and Vlahovic, if he doesn't sign that new contract, I think there's a lot of Premier League clubs looking at him. Arsenal have always loved him, but I wouldn't necessarily rule United out that of him either. And I said Lautaro Martinez, I think he'll probably sign a new deal, but which a lot of Premier League clubs think that as well. But he's an outstanding player, so there's a few options out there for him. But I think Gyökeres is towards the front of United's list at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned there, obviously, Harry Kane being always a big key figure at Manchester United. Who knows? We might find a situation where Thomas Tuchel wins the Champions League with Bayern Munich. Harry Kane absolutely loves him, and they both pack their bags and come to Manchester. We never know, do we? But I think that's more wishful thinking than anything else. And one big name that has been linked with Manchester United, I'd probably say, ever since really the Ineos structure and the deal was confirmed, is Michael Olise. I recall, if I'm not mistaken, this was probably the first concrete name being linked with Manchester United. Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and everyone else involved are big fans of Olise, but as we've gone on, the weeks have gone by, the months have gone by, there's been a bit of a dip in conversation around Olise. But has there been any groundwork done in relation to Olise to Manchester United? Is this deal on, and is there any real possibility of this one happening?
He's a player who all the top four like, all the top four, top six, they all like him. They all appreciate him. He's got a huge release clause. I've been told it's in excess of 60 million. And I did a story last week where Palace do not want to let him go this season. And so they're saying, yeah, if you want to come and get him, you come and pay our release clause. And there's not many teams who are going to want to pay a full release clause, and it's tough. Paying 60 million in one lump sum for someone who is full. Is the ceiling on Olise is massive. It really is. He's got one of the biggest ceilings of a young player in Europe, but he really hasn't done it in the Premier League yet. For me, I think he's a bit untested so far. I think 60 million for Olise is a big ask. United, would they need a right winger? So he can play out wide, he can play on the left as well. Of course, we know that. I think they will look at that part of the squad. I don't think it's a priority, though, Anil. I think a centre midfielder, two centre backs probably, and a striker. I think they're the priorities. I'm not saying they won't sign someone on the right, but I'm not sure that's a priority. I think I think Ahmad's got a whole lot to offer at United, and yeah, I just not sure that winger to come in is a massive priority for United. Not saying they won't, but I don't see it as being one of their top priorities this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one, isn't it? Particularly in that position, because the likes of Anthony and Ahmad, who would like to play in that role. Garnacho's been tried out quite a lot this season in that position as well. Although fitting Garnacho into that position, shoehorning him, if you like, probably doesn't appease too many Man United fans. As you say, we're yet to really see a concrete run of games for Ahmad in the team, and Anthony. We don't have to go too much into Anthony. It hasn't exactly worked out the way that anyone wanted it to, besides the rival fans of Manchester United. But I think this whole conversation really came around because of obviously Mason Greenwood's departure from Manchester United, and I just wanted to really, just highlight what's going on there. What's the likelihood that he will sort of move away from Manchester United? Because there have been reports, haven't there, that Manchester United will look to cash in on him, but if they don't find the right money, then they would be open potentially to even letting him back into the fold at Manchester United. So firstly, how much do you think they'd want for Mason Greenwood? And do you genuinely believe there is a likelihood that he could come back to Man United if that fee, whatever it may be, does not get reached?
Never say never in football. I don't think it's likely at all that Greenwood comes back. I think United have made their position clear. I think it's Jim Ratcliffe, and this shows the how clever this man is. At one point in this whole process, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, two of the real suitors of Greenwood, they thought they could get Greenwood on quite a cheap fee because United had made it clear he wasn't welcome back. He's not coming back. And he was on like Getafe and etc. But then when Greenwood came in, when Ratcliffe came in and he made those comments about Greenwood, where he left that door ajar. So suddenly, United, when you're negotiating now, a few months earlier, Barcelona Atletico was saying, "Well, you don't want him. We're not going to give you big money for a player you don't want." Now they can't say that. United are in that negotiating room saying, "Look, guys, we'll bring him back if you don't want to pay this money." It was so clever from Sir Jim doing that. It really opened up everything. It really raised the value of Greenwood again. Although his performances have done that anyway, he's been outstanding in La Liga. My understanding is he doesn't want to come back either. He's a bit similar to Sancho. He's settled in Madrid with his family now. He's happy there. Again, I think United, if they don't get, it's similar to Sancho again. And if United don't get the money they want, they'll leave him at Getafe for another season, rebuilding his confidence, rebuilding that value. I believe they've took up the option on him already, tying him at the club till 2026, or they've made it known to him they will. So there's no hurry. Let him have another great. Imagine he's had that season in Spain with no training, with a good pre-season behind him. He could be one of the stars of the league next year. He really could. But Atletico do like him a lot. Barcelona, when Roque came in, I think that they would like him, but when they've got the finances to do it, I'm not so sure. Keep an eye on Atletico though. They love him. They really do. And I feel sorry for United fans a little bit. Ideally you get him back. He's one of the best young forwards in the world. But such is the situation. I don't really see him coming back. And nothing surprises me in football. He could. So don't hang me up if he does. I'd love to see him back in English football. I really do. But I just think the situation just doesn't lend itself to him coming back. I think it'd be really, really tough for him. And I think he's happy in Madrid doing what he's doing. And yeah, I think at the very least he'll stay out on loan, possibly a permanent one. But I think given his market value, I'm not sure anyone will pay that this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly one to watch, and it's almost an unprecedented kind of saga, isn't it, with Manchester United?
Yeah, totally.
It's going to be certainly uncertain and murky waters for journalists alike to even cover on, never mind to actually be a part of that deal. So yeah, certainly one to watch out. I know we're running out of time. I know you're a very busy individual, but I just wanted to talk about the defence really at Manchester United. Look, centre backs, they've been linked with probably virtually every week a new name that's going to come into Manchester United and revitalise that defence and, make sure Man United will keep so many clean sheets next season. But let's get straight into it. What names have you heard? What players are realistically at the top of that list for the position at Manchester United?
Unfortunately, I don't think okay that many clean sheets, giving no Niners in goal, and that's part of the problem. But let's leave that for another episode. I've said this for a while. I think they'll bring two centre halves in. I think they'll bring one who's ready and one young one. I think the young one might be Aaron Anselmino from Boca. I think he'll come in and be fourth, fifth choice, a young player. But I think United like him a lot. I think that one's got real legs, and that one there's talks going on there. So I think that's a real chance that happens. But he's someone who could come in and become a first team player within 6 months, maybe within 12, certainly. But I think he's one to come in and bolster the numbers. In terms of that first choice one, I think it's fascinating. I just wanted to touch back on what Erik ten Hag has said before, Anil. And this will determine whether he stays. Obviously, he always wants to right in a lefty. He said this in a few press conferences I've been in, where Martinez is there. I feel for Ten Hag and United because I think Martinez and Shaw, that left side, is one of the best in Europe, and they just haven't seen this here. I think people disregard Martinez and Shaw or forget about them. How good a left-hand side of defence that is. So I do wonder, what United do. Did they sign another lefty to play alongside Martinez and Luke Shaw? I'm not wholly convinced. They do like Branthwaite, we know that they do. But like Tadibo, we know that. Two left-siders, Pacho, they like him as well. They've watched him. Hincapié, who isn't leaving, they've watched him before. For me personally, I think if they spend big money, it'll be on the right footer. And I do. Branthwaite, we do, and we know they do like him. But if everyone's fit, Martinez is starting, isn't he? No, even if Ten Hag isn't there, Martinez is starting. And it's very, very rare to see two left footers. Even if you had Shaw fit, three left footers in a defence. I'm not sure I see it. There's two who we know the United scouting department absolutely love and have done for over a year. Antonio Silva at Benfica, who I think is an absolute Rolls Royce. And I think he's the one. I think he's absolutely outstanding. I think if United had a clear run at him, he'd be amazing player. But we know that alone in admiring him, he is one of the top young defenders in Europe. Scalvini at Atalanta, we know they like him. I'd keep an eye on him next few weeks. He's just come back to full fitness. I was reading that today in the local Italian media. He's come back today. They thought he might miss the Euros. He's fit again. They're two players who United absolutely love. They really do. So I'd keep an eye on them. I really would. I think Diomande at Sporting, they're doing the due diligence. The problem is with this Branthwaite issue with Matt Gahey. He's a player who a lot of teams like. You have to pay this, as I like to call it, Premier League tax. I know where. Branthwaite is, would you pay nearly, £30 million more for Branthwaite than you would for Scalvini? Unfortunately, that just doesn't make sense. You just wouldn't. Branthwaite probably is as good as these players, but it's 70, 80 million. I think that's too much for him. I really do. So, and let's keep, there's other players as well who United are keeping tabs on. I know Ronald Araujo, Barcelona. If he comes out and doesn't sign that new deal and wants out, he'd be a fascinating option for United and a lot of big clubs around. Let's keep an eye on the Bayern situation. Matthias de Ligt, Kim as well, who isn't happy at the moment. But again, with them changing managers, I think a bit like Kimmich, they're waiting to see what a new manager does with those players. So there's a lot of good options out there. I think Anselmino might come in from Boca as a young option, but then away from that, there's a lot of options out there for them. There really is, United. But do I see them spending 80 million, 70, 80 on one of them? I think that's a tough sell. I'm not sure with that. Even if they want to bring in a midfielder as well, and that forward we discussed, I'm not sure there's room for an £80 million centre half in there.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly one for the budget masters at Manchester United to really crunch the numbers.
And it'll depend on who they sell, because obviously they're going to be saving some money on wages. We know, obviously, you mentioned Martial, Varane, set to leave. Given what the his wages, and they'll bid him farewell. But what money can they raise from Casemiro? Fascinating one as well. But did they let Lindelof go if an offer comes in? I'm told they would if a decent offer came in. So, and then there's Harry Maguire who they're open to have. We could see, and that's why I think they'll bring two in, because we could see a situation where Maguire, Lindelof, and Varane all leave. And not disservice to those three. I'm not sure there'd be too many tears shed amongst the fans at Old Trafford. Them three did leave. So, I think the centre half is one where I think we'll see two. I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I don't care who they sign as long as I just don't see Maguire and Casemiro line up at the back for next season, because I think I've seen it once or twice this year and I think that's enough for a lifetime. But look, I've just got one very, very final question for you, because I know, as I say, you're very busy and we are running out of time, so we've only got a couple of minutes left. But in terms of, Jason Wilcox, in terms of Dan Ashworth, in terms of Omar Barada, look, this is a new face, Manchester United. This is a new dawn. This is a new era. And of course, Manchester United fans are very optimistic that this will be the big turning point in the club's future and hopefully bring the success back from the glory days of yesteryear. But look, from your perspective, someone who's very connected, who's right across absolutely everything in terms of stories relating to transfers, in terms of the individuals that are coming into Manchester United, how much of an impact do you think they'll have this summer, firstly? And more importantly, going forward, the bigger picture, please tell Manchester United fans why they are on the right track. Subscribe to the mufcMPB YouTube channel.
Yeah, a fascinating question. And in the short term, it'll be fascinating to see what they do this summer. It's going to be difficult, and I hope United fans are patient. What I would say is, in terms of recruitment, United have already got it right. And when we talk about recruitment, look at Man City, the best ranked club in the world. It all started with Tixi and Soriano, still in place now. What United are doing is putting this in place. I think Ineos should take a lot of credit. So there's Brailsford, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the way they've approached it. Barada has come in, he'll be doing a lot of the commercial stuff. Obviously, he'll play a part in the transfers as well. Jason Wilcox coming in, I'm talking more of a day-to-day, and then Dan Ashworth will be a real figurehead of the football operations, probably quite similar to the job that Michael Edwards will be doing for FSG at Liverpool. Now he'll be the real figurehead, and that will drive United forward long term. For the long term, it'll be the look of the club, the way they act. Back to I know we're harking back, but back to the David Gill days where United won't be embarrassed by little things. I think for United, these little embarrassments that you keep on getting, and that's something that Ineos will drive out the club. United were the envy of Europe. Florentino Perez based this new Real Madrid on the colossus that was Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. And I think that's just where United will get back to being. In the long term, they will. Short term, this summer, there's a job to be done, and there really is. And the first one will be the manager situation. My understanding is, obviously, they haven't made that decision yet. The form was always going to be key. So Jim Ratcliffe likes Ten Hag. He likes what he's done on the disciplinary side. He loves what he's done with the youth. But it was all the prerequisite was always you have to get them playing as well. And as you'll know more than anyone, they're not playing at the moment, the players. It's a real concern. I don't think a decision will be made before the cup final. Will a cup final save Ten Hag a win anyway? I think it probably would. I don't think they'll get ready to win that silverware. Also, they're looking ahead to what they can get. Who's available? We spoke about Tuchel previously. Personally, I still think it might be Gareth Southgate. I do. That's a strange. Do you know what? If a United fan makes that face, I can predict I'm either talking to them about Southgate or Potter. It's that exact face, Anil. It's exactly that face. I think Southgate fits in with that model. He fits in with the work with the youth, the big name. He's worked with every big name in the English football. He's coming from working with Bellingham and Foden and Kane, so he's got that experience. I think they're more likely to go down that route this summer. I think we will see not a massive revolution. I think they'll do what they can. Ideally, yeah, we know they'd like to get rid of a dozen players. When does that ever happen? I think we'll see 5 or 6 go. I think they'd love to obviously move a Casemiro on. I think they would like to see some of these big names moved on. The Maguires, the Casemiros. Maybe Rashford isn't going. We know that. But he has a lot to give still, and he has come from the club. Short term, I think they will make an impression. Back to the original question, I think they will make an impression on the transfer market. They know what they're doing. I think they'll make a couple of splashes, but I think it'll have to be sensible. After what we saw last summer, when they got it so wrong, they really did. We alluded to that, Anil, where the plan was originally to bring in 2 strikers, which was
Mm.
good, midfield. But then for some reason they changed it later on. They suddenly went for a goalkeeper, which they didn't need, and they've got worse in that department, in my opinion. They went and signed Mason Mount, a good player, but he was just the wrong club for him. It was the right player, wrong club. And then they went and spent 72 million in Hoyland. Manchester United cannot afford to have another one of those summers, and I don't think they will. With this footballing department in place now, I don't think we'll see a repeat of that, which is all you can ask as United fans. Well, no, it's not all you can ask. You can ask for a lot more. You can ask for 12
Fans
players
always ask for a lot
Yeah.
more than that.
You know what I mean? You can ask for 12 players out, Harry Kane in. You can ask for a lot more. But I think you'll get somewhere. I think you'll get somewhere in between. I think you'll be if we are talking this time again next year, I think you'll be a happier person.
Well, you say, if we talk this time next year, no, it'll be way, way sooner than that, my friend. I've
Yeah.
absolutely enjoyed this. It's been superb to get your insight. And also, I know you said right at the top that not many people want your opinion, but here we do want your opinion, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to be fair, United fans are great. They give me a lot of they don't give me too much stick on social media. I don't know. I think United fans have. I think with United and Middlesbrough fans have that relationship. It stems back from Brian Robson, doesn't it? I think we've always and Steve McLaren. I think we've always had that little connection. For me, it goes back to Stephen Pears when we took Stephen Pears off here, and he was one of our greatest ever players. So it goes back to my youth. It shows how old I am. Yeah.
Far from it, my friend. But no, jokes aside, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Just as I say, get your information on things, but also someone who's so established within this industry to get your well-rounded opinion on so many things surrounding Manchester United at the moment. It's an absolute circus at the moment, and something tells me even if things get settled, nothing's going to be like Manchester United when it comes to a circus party. So thank you so much, Graeme. Thank you as again, not just from my side, but from mufcMPB, from all the supporters that watch our channel. Guests like you really make a pleasurable show and also really informative. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot. And thanks, of course, to everyone who has watched today's episode on the mufcMPB YouTube channel. Please be sure to like, subscribe. You will have heard me say this numerous times. We almost have to say it helps us get on brilliant guests like Graeme to bring you guys some concrete, solid and reliable information, everything to do with Manchester United. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'm sure I'll be back next week with another brilliant guest. Take care, guys. Subscribe to the mufcMPB YouTube channel.